Thank you so much for the invitation. Really, it's a great opportunity to share some of the Bogotá's experiences right now, what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve. As you know, Bogotá is a very vibrant city. We're more than 8 million people. We are actually a city region of 10 million people, including the surrounding metropolitan area with the province of Cundinamarca. In fact, even though we are a de facto metropolitan region, we don't have any institutional regional setting. So last year we decided we need to change the constitution. That's some of the Colombian things. We need to change the constitution to allow the creation of the metropolitan region between Cundinamarca and Bogotá. It's not a metropolitan area in the sense that it's not only with the municipalities surrounding Bogotá, but actually with the entire province, because we want to include not only urban, but also rural issues, issues of buying, for example, our food for just prices to the peasants. So I think when we talk about this sort of vision and illusion to have a 15 minutes or 30 minute city, actually what we're trying to achieve is a more inclusive, more sustainable, more diverse, less segregated city. As you were mentioning before, we are another Latin American big segregated, both spatially and socially very segregated city, and unfortunately very segregated society. Half of our city has not been planned by anyone, right? It has been done by informal markets that produce more than half of the housing in our city for low-income people. The state is quite unable to provide a good offer of quality of housing for low-income people. So that has been the story of Latin America, and that's also unfortunately part of the story of Bogotá. Our city by minutes so far is quite far away from the dream of the 15-minute city, right? On average, maybe the average travel by bike, and in fact, one of the things that make us proud of Bogotá is that we are the world capital of biking. And that makes us very proud. It has been a 20 years history of Bogotá. We have now 585 kilometers of cycleways in Bogotá. And in the next 4 years, we're gonna build another 280 kilometers. Last year, Bogotá had around 6 to 8% of the total travels per day biking, and last year we increased that to 11%. Yesterday precisely we enacted our public policy to improve biking in Bogotá for the next 18 years. We're going to invest 2.2 billion pesos. That's roughly $0.7 billion in the next 18 years, just to increase the quality and the quantity of travels by biking, to make life better for pedestrians and for bike users. I think that's the first thing of sustainability and inclusivity. No? In Bogotá, 15% of the daily travels are done by cars, but they have 80% of the public space. It's a very unequal relationship. 50% of the travels, 80% of the space, right? So the first thing to try to do anything closer to the dream of the 15 or 30 minute city is to make it more inclusive for all travel modes, especially for those more sustainable, more clean, and socially, universal, which is pedestrian and bikers. By car, the average travel is 56 minutes. And in public transportation could be 80 minutes. That shows you how unequal, how segregated the city is. It means that people live in one place and has to travel 80 minutes in buses or in public transportation to get to the place where they either study, especially in universities, or work. And that's, I will say, the second condition if we want to achieve and get closer to a more diverse, inclusive, sustainable, compact cities. And is that we need to close the gap, the distance, the time, the quality of the urban space between living and working, or living and studying. So we are far away from the dream in the distance and in the way the city is, but we are decided to actually, yeah, to actually get closer to the dream. So we have some opportunities, and I will say that in terms of urban quality, the pandemic has been more an opportunity than a threat, I will say. It has been a threat in the sense that it unfortunately deepened the inequalities in terms of income. For example, of course, we have more unemployment, more poverty, less income available for the families because of the crisis of the pandemic. But at the same time, we doubled the number of travels of pedestrians. We doubled the number of travels by bike. Just last year, we increased in 85 kilometers the cycleways in our city. People is changing the patterns in when they move. People around the world, and by the numbers we see in Bogotá, I think this is reasonable. Probably 30% of the people will never come back to offices. So the reasons for people to move, the way they work, the way they study will change. And I think all this scenario, of course, has troubles, but also has opportunities. The first opportunity we have this year is that we are doing at the same time the long-term mobility plan and the long-term urban master plan. So we have these two tools to plan a better city. So in terms of mobility, we have basically three great challenges, three great goals. The first, as I was mentioned, was to increase the quantity and quality of pedestrian space and cycleways. The second is to build that. I think that's one of the things, one of the things that make us proud is to be the biking capital of the world. One of the things that make us shameful is that we are just building the first metro linea in Bogotá in 2020. In 2020, I mean, this is a mobility technology of the 19th century in the world, and we are just building the first metro line in Bogotá in this year. So we're going to do three things here: to build a real regional metro network. So we are building now the first line. We are agreeing with the national government the building of the second line, and we're gonna plan for in the next 15 years another two. I mean, trying that to build in 25 years 4 lines, meaning doing in 25 years what we haven't done in 100 years. So that's the first goal. The second goal, what I was mentioning, is to double the quality and the quantity of space for pedestrians and for bike users. And the third is to build green corridors, meaning green is not because we painted in green. Green is because we devote and build corridors that are zero emissions. And we're going to start on the flag. The first green corridor for us will be La Carrera Séptima. And the Séptima Avenue, the 7th Avenue in Bogotá, is a very emblematic avenue. It's the more historical. It crosses the city from south to north in the east of our city. It's a very emblematic, very historic, highly used, intensively used corridor. And we are contracting out the building of this green corridor so that we are increasing space for pedestrians. We are including cycleways that was not present in that corridor before. All the public transportation we're going to put in that corridor is zero emissions, is electric. We're looking for either buses or tram buses because We're not going to put metro there because the metro is going to go like 10 blocks from the 7th corridor. But it's a green corridor. It's a green corridor. A green corridor is a zero emissions corridor. That's what we need to plan for. So this is going to be the first one, but it's not going to be the last one. That in terms of long-term mobility. And in terms of land use master plans, our POT, Plan de Ordenamiento Territorial, POT by Spanish acronym, is to build the city around green corridors and vital districts or vital networks. Right now, our city is divided in 20 localities, but they are too big. On average, one locality could have 1.5 million people. So that's like another city. It's a city within the city. We wanna, reduce to increase the number of green districts in our city, probably from 20 to 30 or 35, to make them around no more than 500,000 people, and to make it a unit of urban planning for quality. And the key issue is not only to reduce the size, but to improve the quality of the urban planning by building centralities, by reducing or making sure that these vital districts or vital neighborhoods can combine different uses, can combine labor and entertainment and cultural and education and housing opportunities, so that a district within probably 30 minutes distance by public transportation or bike, you can have everything you need. That's what the actual Bogotá don't have. We have on average distances, as I was mentioning before, of 80 minutes to go from when you live to when you work, where you work. We want to reduce that from 80 to 30. And that's what the vital network or district is. So the white lines that you see here in this map is the actual division between localities. For example, this locality here in the, let me see if I can show you here so you could see this one. So for example, this locality in the north, which is Suba. Suba is like almost 2 million people. So if you divide Suba in 3 or 4 parts and provide incentives for location of businesses and labor opportunities and education and cultural opportunities, so that people within their district can find what they need for a better life and a better urban life. Instead of moving 30 minutes, instead of moving 80 minutes, trying to reduce that to 30 minutes. So proximity is key, but it's not only proximity, it's diversity, it's vitality. It's to have cultural, educational, labor, and housing opportunities around 30 minutes. So if you want to move from other things that you want to enjoy around the city, you're welcome to do it, of course. It's not trying to kill the vibrancy of a large city such as Bogotá, but it's trying to reduce the time that people waste, basically. If you count, every Bogotano has to spend 2 to 3 hours daily just traveling in a bus. That's very unproductive. That's losing time to take care of their children, to share time for entertainment, for cultural opportunities. That's losing productivity and competitiveness in our city. So it's not only a thing of minutes, but of quality of life and inclusiveness. We're projecting, as I was mentioning before, the first green corridor we're actually going to build it. I mean, this is not only with something we're going to live in and slide. It's something we're going to invest 2 billion people to build, 2 billion pesos, to build. Is going to be this one, is the Septima corridor, which is this one here in the west, in the east, And we're planning in our master urban plan, we're gonna leave the planning of around 26 green corridors, meaning we're gonna planning for them to have either metro lines or cycleways or BRT, but BRT made of electric buses, all forms of zero emissions mobility. That's what a green corridor is. So that's the projection in the next 18 years for the city in terms of planning for mobility. This is just, as I was mentioning before, the Septima corridor, green corridor, which is going to be the first one. So it's going to have sustainable mobility. It's going to have a sense of place. More than 16 plazas, for example, will be located along the corridor to provide opportunities to have a sense of place, to social encounter. Also, we're going to increase the number of trees and green spaces within the corridor. This is just some examples of parts of the design of the green corridor along the way. So it's something like that now, and it's going to be something like that then, right? It's going to have not only exclusive lanes for zero emissions public transportation. We're going to increase the public space for pedestrians, inclusive uses. We're going to increase the number of trees, of gardens, the quality of the space for pedestrians and for cycleways. For example, right now we have a temporal cycleway in the Septima corridor, but now we're going to leave it permanently. So this is just to give you a sense of what we mean by a green corridor. This is in the very center of Bogotá, for example. We're going to add different forms of mobility. For example, we're going to have a metro cable that can take people from the plain part of the center of the city up to Monserrate, for example, or the universities, which is in the mountains, up in the mountains. If those of you have been, some of you have been in Bogotá, you know that one of our great places, we're surrounded by mountains, by green mountains around the city. That's marvelous, but we need to connect better for urban and for recreational and for transportation purposes, these areas. This is also just to give you a sense what we mean in changing the design. You know, this is one of the plazas that I was mentioning to you. So it's not only to have, sidewalks. It's also to have public spaces in which we can take a coffee, we can share a moment, we can share a cultural moment, we can share a reading. The distribution of the space, I think the city is a pack, right? Is very packed by definition. And there is a fight between the distribution of the space. As I was saying before, cars are 15% of the travels, but they occupy 85% of the space. It's quite unequal. So trying to provide better space for them, for different uses, is quite important. And making sure that we move from fossil energy to clean energy in our public transportation. It could be by tram buses, it could be by buses, it could be by metro, it could be by regio tram. We're going to have different modes of transportation, of course. In Bogotá, in the Green Corridor, we're basically looking at either buses, electric buses, or trams. It depends on what the market can offer for the contract of this. We're also doing something that makes us very, very proud. It's not only green corridors by Ciclo Alameda, as we call it. We're going to build a Ciclo Alameda, meaning a space that is basically devoted for pedestrians and for cycleways. 25 kilometers. That's basically crossing the entire city from the south to the north. So this is another green corridor. This is an example of another green corridor. We call it the Ciclo Alameda Medio Milenio. In the year 2038, Bogotá will have 500 years of history. So we're now, we're close to be a half millennium city finally. Very young still by other standards in the world. But this is the kind of things, it's another green corridor, this is Ciclo Alameda Medio Milenio, 25 kilometers, crossing the entire city from north to south, connecting different localities, different neighborhoods. This is another green corridor, but what is the ancla here? You know, what is the key element is the metro system. That's gonna be in another part of the east of the city is in La Caracas Avenida, which is one of the worst places in Bogotá. And we hope to do not only an urban renewal, but an urban revitalization around the metro, the first metro line to build. This is another example of urban intervention at the scale of district, at the scale of neighborhoods, trying to improve the quality and the encounter of public spaces in the green districts that I was mentioning before. You know, how to plan for a vital network around the different strategic use of streets, of activities, of using of the public space, trying to reduce traffic in a very strategic way. This is just one of examples that we have done actually in this year in one of the localities. We're going to improve little by little. So just to share some ideas, I mean, this is what we're actually not only planning, but building in Bogotá right now. And these are investments that have funds for sure that we're going to contract out during our 4-year term. We're just in the first year of our 4-year term. So the green corridor is going to be a reality. The Ciclo Alameda Medio Milenio is going to be a reality. The expansion of the metro system from zero lines of metro to at least 4 in the next 20 years is going to be a reality. We're just ensuring the funds for the first 2, and in the next 15 years, the another 2 will come. Also connection with our metropolitan regional area by regional trams. We are now building the first one in the west, and we are planning to do the funds and the contract for the second one, connecting the north region, metropolitan region, to the center of Bogotá. So it's trying to do in 20 years what we haven't done in 100. It's very ambitious, but it's the least that we need to do. It's the least that we need to do for social inclusion, for social diversity, for environmental sustainability, and to do a more inclusive. So probably we're not gonna be able to get to the 15 minutes idea of Paris, but if we can move from 80 minutes to at least 30 in a more inclusive, greener, sustainable city, that will be a great achievement for Bogotá.